Hello and welcome to another 10-minute monster video from Mostly Off Topic. I'm Paul and today we're going to cover the Banshee. We got ourselves into the buzz. We spend a very short amount of time just talking about the monster, not really talking about the stat block. We're just riffing off what the monster manual tells us, the implied world that it states for Dungeons and Dragons, and any kind of campaign ideas that we might be able to kind of derive from from these monsters. So we're not going to be doing strat, we're not going to be doing kind of, and you should use this ability to attack the PCs in this way or what have you. It's much more about the fiction of the world and the story of the world. So Banshees. Banshees are the Elven undead. In life, they're all female. In life, they were all beautiful elves who didn't use their beauty for good. Which is a little bit ambiguous, and I have to say this is one of the things that I don't particularly like about the Banshee. But anyway, they kind of hang around places. Excuse me, they can't go any more than 5 miles away from any given location, and they lure the living in, and then they destroy them. More or less, they fry them. They kind of they have a mournful wail, which is the release of all their anguish about being banished from the living world, and having I imagine the cycle of the elves kind of spirit reincarnated through various mortal forms being frozen in one point due to their own vainglorious existence, due to their own vanity. So let's just have a little look about kind of what do we learn about the D&D world, and what does this tell us. So it kind of tells that beautiful elves, beautiful female elves, need to bring joy to the world. I'm not quite sure what that means, and I think from my perspective, just not bringing joy to the world is very different than actively impacting the world in an evil way because of your vanity. I think it's important that whatever elves suffer the curse of becoming a banshee have actually really done something quite depraved or quite nasty in a willful way to attract the curse. Otherwise, it's kind of like, hey, we gave you this real gift, but you kind of didn't do much with it. You didn't do anything bad, but here, boom, there you go. Have this curse. Thanks for your time. And I would imagine that Hanali Kelanel, the Elven Goddess of Beauty, has got to be aware of banshees. She's got to be like, "Ooh, I've given the gift of beauty to these people. Don't fuck it up, guys. You got one job. Don't fuck it up." So I imagine that she and her agents are interested in stopping elves from becoming banshees. And it's interesting here that it says, elves afflicted by the banshee's curse experience no gladness, feeling only distress in the presence of living. As the curse takes its toll, their minds and bodies decay until death completes their transformation into undead monsters. So they're becoming banshees when they're still alive. So all the Church of Hanali Kelanil needs to do is look out for beautiful elves that are a little bit off-piste, and then maybe they can correct them. It also kind of says that, suggests that any independent-minded, attractive female elves are just going to be sick and tired of people saying, "You're a banshee, you're going to become a banshee." Well, people, as in their chauvinistic kind of male colleagues. And let's face it, some elves can be pretty damn nasty. They're not all kind of happiness and light, Legolas and bouncing around. Thranduil was not the most generous of characters, so I imagine that there is some inherent chauvinism in some of the elves around. And I can also imagine that the curse of the banshee being used almost as like a bogeyman for mothers and fathers instructing their daughters. If you're not careful, then you'll become a banshee. You got to share, otherwise you become a banshee. You got to make sure that you use beauty as a force of good, otherwise you'll become a banshee. I can just hear that echoing around the nurseries of the Elven kingdoms. So it also suggests, and we also kind of learn from this, that there must be a strong tell that there's a banshee around, that an elf became a banshee. This is a progression of beautiful elves progressing into a kind of hermit existence. And people can be like, whoa, hold on a minute, where's the beautiful elf gone? Where is Agnetha? she's got off onto the forest on her own and she's slowly decaying. You say, oh, possibly Banshee. And these stories could kind of like percolate out to the player characters. They could be 100 years ago, perhaps. They percolate out to the player characters, and they know there's a Banshee around there. So why would the player characters be interested in going to find this Banshee? One, maybe they are of the Church of the Elven Goddess of Beauty, and they want to sort this out. This is kind of a gift, a great gift from that goddess that's been used poorly. Or maybe they're just actually after the treasure, because there are beautiful, fine objects, art pieces, paintings, statues, so on and so forth. No mirrors, because it reminds the Banshee, I guess, of what they've lost. But other than that, they're surrounded by some fantastic, lovely pieces of art. Why wouldn't you go there? Perhaps the previous owners of them want it reclaiming. So perhaps the Banshee is the centre of an art theft ring in your world, and the Banshee commissions kind of thieves to go and bring this to her, and that's a bit of a problem for the owners of the art, and perhaps it's a detective investigative game that takes a bit of a dark turn. So anyway, the Banshee is a pretty good setup for a kind of lower level boss. You could give them legendary actions, lair actions that would really make sense in the context of the Banshee. They can't go more than 5 miles away from wherever they are, so it would make sense that they have lair actions and that their presence affects the area around them. I think that would be a good way of doing that. And it also is really easy to set up in that investigative way. There will be a history of these individuals having existed in the world. There will be a history that could be pieced together of them slowly withdrawing from the world. There may be a history of them relocating away and taking all their worldly goods with them. And therefore, there's a breadcrumb that you can pass to your player characters to follow to lead to the Banshee, and then the boss fight with the appropriate treasure rewards. We are talking Dungeons and Dragons after all. So what would I kind of like to be better? Well, I think that the predictability of the Banshee. Oh, right, there's a Banshee over there. Oh, I've heard a wail. There's a Banshee. Kind of makes it pretty obvious. And I think also it makes it hard that if there's a Banshee in the area, because there's 5 mile restriction, their inability to leave, it's not a random monster really. The rumours and the behaviours and the kind of knowledge that something untoward is happening out in that place would be common parlance. So you'd have to have a really lowly populated area for this just to come up on a random dungeon table. Is kind of where I'm coming from. So there's the obvious kind of campaign setup that you can use. Maybe the player characters have to intervene with an elf before she becomes a Banshee. So maybe they're commissioned. Maybe they're part of the monastery of Hanali Kalanil, who is responsible for intervening and stopping this turn to Banshee hood. That would be a really quite interesting kind of one shot or short campaign arc where they have to kind of use more social skills and perhaps find out what the course of this is. A psychological thriller element within Dungeons and Dragons to find that out. Maybe you just want to remove that 5 mile restriction. Maybe the Banshee can move around. Maybe the curse, maybe the reason why this individual became cursed as a Banshee was because they were so full of their own beauty that they thought this was the single most beautiful thing that there could be, and therefore everybody should look like that. So there's a bit of flesh crafting in there. So you get this kind of like really kind of gothic horror aspect to it, where the Banshee over the generations has been crafting the flesh of the village that lives at the bottom of her tower, and they were all kind of like better or worse resemblances of her. That would be a bit of a freaky kind of turn up for the books in a Ravenloft style adventure. And maybe the Banshee hundreds of years ago retired to what was the wilderness, but an urban sprawl has just kind of developed. The boundaries of the cities have spread from what they once were out, and she's now in the suburbs, and she's now got people and around, and there's a cult of her personality and her beauty that's kind of developed around her. You could combine some of these ideas, so she's bringing the artworks of the city and stealing them to her underground lair. She's slowly flesh crafting the people to look more and more like her, a kind of version of the Dunwich look from Lovecraft, where everybody was slowly transforming their way into the Deep Ones, and maybe the people are slowly transforming their way so that they look how the Banshee thought they should look in the previous life. That would be quite an interesting campaign arc or kind of urban aspect to a game. Or maybe it's a Beauty and the Beast. Maybe your character has been thrown, or your character has been thrown into the lair of the Banshee, who's not kind of out immediately to kind of kill them or destroy them. She's so desirous to try to recover her life back into that elven cycle. And how exactly could you bring joy to the world? Is there a way in which you could reverse some of the aspects that have turned into this undead beast? So those are just some ideas, just kind of riffing off what the Monster Manual tells us. If you like the video, please like it. If you want more of this kind of content, subscribe. We are streaming a couple of Dungeons & Dragons games. We have a Waterdeep Dragon Heist, which will turn into a Dungeon of the Mad Mage game, which streams every other Tuesday, and then every other Friday we do a homebrew within the Forgotten Realms, kind of domain level, intrigue level game in the county of Circazar in the country of Tethia, and that's currently a level 11, so the players are kind of hitting that mid to upper tier of Dungeons & Dragons. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this, and look out for more content. Thank you for watching.